Welcome to the Castaway Consultants Podcast.
Where we, the three co-hosts who've never played the game, judge Survivor contestants on a game we've never played from the safety of our own home.
So we're a podcast that is going back and taking a look at all of Survivor, so you don't have to. We're going to let you know what is must-watch Survivor and what isn't must-watch Survivor. I'm Ryan Stacy. I'm a huge super fan of the show. I've been through, this is my third rewatch of the show. I know everything about it. I'm basically a super genius. I'm joined by two guests.
I'm Derek Kubicek. I have been a super fan of Survivor starting with season 27 and onward. I've seen those 11 seasons one time apiece, and now I'm going back for the first time, most of which is unspoiled for me. So I'm the Virgil. I'm the virgin.
I'm Josh Wessler. I guess would also consider myself a super fan, even though I haven't watched every single season. I've watched, 80%-ish. Currently on season 19, and then I've also watched, I think, season 27 and on. My unique perspective for this is that I have not watched the earlier seasons in about 5 or 6 years.
So we're gauging how memorable each season is through Josh.
Hooray.
Hooray, indeed. So yeah, we have three different unique perspectives here. Today we're going to be going over the pre-merge of Survivor Season 2, the Australian Outback. Derek has no idea what's coming.
Zero. I've got a couple minor plot points that I'll touch on that I have heard of in this season, but not much.
Yeah, so that's really fun. I think that's the most exciting element of this for me is listening to Derek's predictions. What do you think is going to happen next? I find that very fun. Basically, what I'm saying here is the second half of the season is going to be unspoiled in this podcast. We're not going to talk about it at all. We're not going to talk about who wins. All we're going to talk about is all the way up through who makes the merge, just because Derek doesn't know yet.
I'm excited. Let's go.
All right. So first off, let's go over the cast for Survivor Season 2 real quickly.
We should also mention that if you have not listened to the first 2 episodes of this podcast, which covered season 1, we would recommend that you do so.
And all three of us would recommend watching all seasons of Survivor. We understand you don't have time to do that. That's why we're here. But we're going to try and give you what is must watch if you can't do it all.
So actually, before we get into the cast, let me ask you guys this. Would you consider this must-watch Survivor?
Absolutely. Having seen it the first time through, they're a little heavy on the didgeridoo, but this season is so drastically different from season 1 because everybody knows what's going on. Absolutely must watch.
Yeah, it's just a complete 180 when you're looking at comparing the first season to this season. But at the same time, even though everyone's looking at it basically strategically now, it's all really fresh strategy. Yes. So it's really cool to watch.
Yeah, there's new elements, new things happen, there's a bigger budget. It's absolutely must-watch Survivor. This is a fantastic pre-merge. For those of you who are interested in going back and rewatching some Survivor, go check this one out and then come back and listen to us. All right, let's go over the cast. Now, one thing we're doing, since Josh is not super fresh with the show, he has since watched the premiere, only the premiere going into this podcast. Before we had him watch the premiere, we played a little game where we went back and took a look at the cast for Survivor the Australian Outback. Tried to see how many players he could remember. So here is that game. Enjoy. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Ryan.
You ready to play a little game where you try and remember the cast members that were on a season of Survivor that it's been a long time since you've seen?
Ready, not confident.
All right, so we're going to be doing the cast of Survivor 2, the Australian Outback. Josh, you have 16 castaways. Half of them are returning players. How many of them can you remember?
Yeah, and you saying half are returning makes it where I should be able to do a lot better job. Now, keeping in mind, this was very shortly after I had watched Survivor Borneo, 5 or 6 years, I don't really remember, because I had just gotten into Survivor, so I had basically binge-watched Season 1 in, 2 days, because I was home from on college break, so I had nothing else better to do. Basically did the same exact thing with Australian Outback, and I think when you are binge-watching like that, it's much easier to not remember names, especially, pre-merge names. So yeah, looking at Australia.
He has no photos in front of him. He's got nothing. This is just memory for now.
This is pure memory. Great way to kind of gauge how memorable the season is.
Yep.
Even though I have pretty bad memory, so maybe not the best way to do it.
If you remember the name or basically what the character and what they do, I'll give you the point. But 16 points available. Let's go.
Cool. You have Tina.
Tina.
You have Colby.
You
have girl that starts with a J. That is close with Jerry.
Yep, Jerry. Those are the big three.
I'm proud of that. I remember that name.
You got the big three
because it's a unique name. You have Michael
Scoopin.
I feel like that's an easy memorable moment.
Ooh boy, Michael Scoopin.
Yep, it is what it is.
Yep.
You have Jeff Varner.
Oh boy, Jeff Varner. Oh man. So many of these players that were so popular at the time have lost their reputation.
Yeah. And this is where it's tough. I don't know if I'm going to get any more, which is a damn shame. This is a shame. I know I would recognize so many more people. There's a girl I'm thinking of. She made it late into the game. Was this Amber's season? It was.
You got Amber.
Nice. Okay. I can't remember if this was her season or if she was in one of the next ones.
That's fair, because Amber's not very memorable.
That's a tough one. I think that's the girl that I was thinking of. I think that's all I got.
All right.
Just off the top of my head.
We got 6. So let's go into the cast photo and see how many more you can get. So Josh, come scoot on over. All right, we'll start with the Kucha tribe. So first off, we have Michael Skupin, who you got. So who is this? Young woman in a pink bikini.
I definitely recognize the face. I don't know the name, don't know what she did.
She is probably the most famous person to ever play Survivor. That is Elizabeth Filarski, now known as Elizabeth Hasselbeck.
Oh, that's right.
From The View. She has probably been more successful than any other person to ever play Survivor.
Yeah, that's... I should have been able to pull that.
Yeah, you should have. You got Jeff Varner. Who is this?
God, Jeff looks so different.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, isn't that Kimmy?
Kimmy. We got Kimmy.
Yeah.
All right.
How did I should have been able to pull Kimmy too. That's definitely it's been way too long since I've seen it.
Yeah.
I definitely remember her. Don't know her name. Don't know what she did.
Alicia. It's Alicia.
Oh, yep.
Okay, how about this guy sitting in front?
I also remember him. He was, again, don't really know what he did.
That was Roger. He and
yeah.
Elizabeth were super close.
Yep. He made it pretty far, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. No idea. Don't recognize her.
That's Deb, our first boot.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And finally for Kucha, who's this guy?
He was pretty early too, wasn't he?
No.
No? I don't know him.
That's Nick. Probably the least memorable person on the season.
Okay,
honestly.
I do not remember anything
That's
about
fair.
him.
All right. Let's go.
So not good.
Not great. Not great. Let's
Could
go.
be worse though.
So we've got 7 out of 16 so far. So here is the Olgakor tribe. So you got Amber.
Yep.
Who is that guy? I'll give you. That's not a good. You can barely see him in the cast photo.
I feel like I'd maybe be able to get him if I had a better picture.
Here's his solo picture.
He looks a little familiar, but I don't think I'm not gonna get it.
That is Keith.
I still don't recognize the name.
Okay. We got Jerry. Who
Of
is
course.
this dude? Well, he's more ripped than I remember him being.
Yeah, I definitely remember him. Because he made it decently far, right?
No.
What? Okay. This does not look good. Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna
That's
get it.
Kel. He used beef jerky.
Oh, yeah. Because did he take someone's or someone took his?
He had beef jerky.
That you're just not supposed to.
smuggled into the game.
That's what it
Allegedly.
was. Okay.
How about her? The older woman.
Don't remember.
It's Marilyn.
Okay.
All right, so you got Colby, you got Tina, and last person, who is this tall guy?
Don't remember him.
It's Mitchell. He's the tallest survivor ever, I believe. He's like 7'1" or something.
It's a great thing to be remembered for.
Yep. Okay, so you got 7 out of 16. That's definitely a step down from Borneo. So
Yeah, I think it's fair though, especially considering the circumstance of when I watched it, and I watched it like immediately after Borneo, and it's not the first season.
Yeah.
So
7 out of 16.
I feel like this is gonna be about the trend for a lot of these early seasons that I kind of just destroyed all at one time, basically when I was just binge watching. So yeah, that's about what I expected.
Okay, cool. So Josh, congratulations on getting only 7 out of 16.
Yeah, that wasn't that great. Yeah, it's gonna get worse, and I know that.
All right, so let's go over the Kucha tribe. We have Alicia Calloway, who is a personal trainer from New York. Deb Eaton, a corrections officer from New Hampshire. Elizabeth Filarski, who will not go on to be anything famous whatsoever. A footwear designer from Massachusetts. Jeff Varner, an internal projects manager from New York, who won't go on to do anything more notorious. Kimmy Kappenberg, a bartender from New York. Michael Skupin, a software company president from Michigan, who also won't go on to do anything more notorious. Nick Brown, a law student from Washington, and Roger Bingham, a farmer from Kentucky. That's Kucha tribe.
Kentucky Joe.
Kentucky Joe. And then over on Olgakor, we have Amber Burkich, an administrative assistant from Pennsylvania. Colby Donaldson, an auto customizer from Texas. Jerry Manthe, an aspiring actress from California. Keith Famey, a chef from Michigan. Cal Gleason, an Army intelligence officer from Texas. Marilyn Hershey, a retired police officer from Virginia. Mitchell Olson, a singer-songwriter from New Jersey. And Tina Wesson, a personal nurse from Tennessee. That's our cast. Episode 1, Stranded. We start with all the tribe mates. We're flying in on a plane, and they're getting abandoned in the middle of the Australian Outback. Kind of classic stuff, marooning, but at least it's a little different. It's on a plane this time, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and also I heard that the contestants were supposed to skydive, but that ended up having the kibosh put on it.
Yeah, originally they were going to skydive into the Australian Outback, but insurance.
Yeah, probably a good move not doing that. And it was still a cool kind of beginning that just weren't used to.
Yeah, they haven't really done anything with like planes ever again, so that's kind of cool. Right out the gate here, making a couple of mistakes. So Nick Brown takes the compass. Taking the compass and the map puts you in a leadership position. This is something to avoid.
This hasn't really been established yet in Survivor, like being weary of the whole like leadership role. It obviously is something that develops as we go on in future seasons, but this is kind of the first instance of it.
Because Nick misreads the compass and leads the tribe in the complete wrong direction.
Whoops.
Not great. People just want to get to camp. Don't ever put yourself in leadership position. Like, I'm pretty good with maps and compasses. Guess what I'm not touching ever if I go on Survivor? The map and the compass. Also, we get Deb Eaton being bossy.
Never a good plan.
This is a good way to get voted out first.
And again, Deb is an older tribe mate, kind of like your BB. It echoed for me a little bit.
Yeah, she's also a corrections officer, so she's used to yelling and getting her way because, you know, you kind of have to do what the correction officer is telling you to do. That doesn't apply on Survivor. These aren't prisoners. These are...
And people with these kind of like loud, more like boisterous roles, even if it's just their personalities, it happens very frequently on Survivor, and it's very frequent that they get voted out early on.
Yep. Point of genius, Colby brings a Texas flag, a giant-ass Texas flag is his luxury item, and reveals that he brought that because he knew it would be great for his shelter. I don't think production realized this, because they have just, like, a tent.
Yeah, you can't do this anymore.
No, this will not fly anymore. This is awesome. Like, this was so impressive. It tells me Colby was thinking way ahead coming into this game.
Yes, but what about Jerry bringing a bongo drum?
That's less great. That could get annoying real fast.
Goon.
Yeah, Jerry's a goon. And Kimmy won't shut up at night. She's keeping people up. Jeff Varner's getting annoyed with her, talking about sex stuff and just being loud in general. Yo, people want to sleep, dog. And also, not everybody is going to be comfortable with you talking about threesomes or whatever.
Yeah, stupid millennials.
Yeah, well, and beyond, you know, the whole millennial thing, I even have it in a note here that Kimmy is just a bit much. I mean, Deb was a bit much, but Kimmy, you need to pull back that personality a little bit, read the room, I think. At least I think that's the smart move. It's not great TV, but it's the smart move.
Yeah, Kimmy is definitely cast not because she's great at reading the room. Personally, I can't stand Kimmy. I really can't stand her. She drives me up the wall. And I would have been campaigning to vote her out first.
Yeah. There's not that much to add on that.
Yeah. Over on Okafor, we have conflict between Jerry and Keith. And this is going to be very commonplace throughout at least the first half of the season. Jerry and Keith are arguing about something stupid.
Yeah, if I remember right, it's because Keith is the chef,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't like how he makes the rice, and so Jerry starts making tortillas, and I guess there's some kind of power struggle going on there.
Yeah, I don't think that happens till episode 2 with the tortillas, but
Either way, they don't like each other.
they don't like each other. And to be fair, in Keith's defense, what are you going to do? You have rice.
Yeah.
It's not like you can he's in his kitchen, he's got a wide variety of ingredients to make things taste amazing. He's got rice.
And water to
Like,
boil it in.
What do you want? Leave the guy alone, Jerry. Now, in her defense, she says he kind of has a bit of a condescending attitude. And we don't really see that on screen. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. We can't tell her he's not being condescending. You know, this is from her perspective. So if she feels that way, she feels that way. And it's up to Keith to, even if he feels like he's not being condescending, it's up to him to change his behavior and make sure he's not coming off as condescending.
But what's happening here to me, this is classic editology. Episode 1 even, we're starting to see Jerry pointed as the villain.
Yeah.
And even in episode 1, I was thinking, wow, she's getting a ton of confessionals here, but they're not overly positive. Yeah. So I think she's going, based on the edit, she's going to go far, but it's not going to be in a positive light. So we'll see.
So yeah, the whole Jerry and Keith thing, that's going to be around. So buckle up, buckaroos. If you don't like Jerry or Keith, sorry.
Yeah, and that's one thing I remember from watching my first time through is I just was not a Jerry fan.
Okay, that's interesting. Most people are not Jerry fans, at least when this was airing. But I know a lot of people don't like Keith either, and Keith gets a lot of flack. And I'm just like, why? I don't really see why Keith is so bad.
And if they were trying to have you choose sides, they didn't do a very good job, because I didn't like either.
That's fair.
I was more on Keith's side.
After Okafor wins immunity, Cooch is going to the first tribal council. And Deb has been telling everybody Jeff wants to go home because Jeff got airsick on the way in and he's trying to recover from that. To Jeff's credit, he was doing a pretty good job of hiding it, but eventually you gotta puke. But Deb has been telling everybody, yeah, Jeff wants to go home. That's what he told me. And Jeff's like, no.
I think it was a conversation with Alicia where Jeff's like, really? Wow, starting with that already. Okay.
So do you think that she just knew that she was going to be going home, so it was kind of just like whatever she could pull out of the bag?
I think she knew she was in trouble, and I think it was a smart move to just throw Jeff under the bus.
Didn't work.
Great on Deb's part, but Jeff, we don't get to see him do this, but he must go to like everybody and just be like, no, not true. Let's turn it around.
I want to be here. Don't believe this chick.
So we get to the vote. What do we do here? Jeff's sick. Deb doesn't really fit in. Who do we vote out?
Deb.
Deb.
You think so?
Easy vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree because Jeff isn't that sick. He's just puking a bit.
Well, and also if you have someone on the tribe who's going to be rigid and going to be controlling, that's not great for group dynamic if you've got a bunch of large personalities. And also, easy first vote. Don't make it complicated.
My go-to is vote out the weakest person who's not in your alliance. Deb is in nobody's alliance, so she doesn't seem like she's weak, but nobody has really stuck out as being super weak yet.
Yeah.
And there's been no alliances or no talk of any of that stuff.
We know
right
of.
away. That has been shown.
Sure.
So yeah, I completely agree that it's Deb.
So, best player of the episode for me, Jeff Varner. I had it down because, he fell far. Being sick put him in a disadvantage. He had his name thrown out there quite a bit, but pulled it together and obviously proved that he had made the connections really quickly. He showed that he was being strategic and ended up getting Deb voted out. He does get a vote, which, the tiebreaker rules in this season come into effect, so that's not a good thing. But he could have gone home here, and he didn't, so I say Jeff.
Here's the thing. Yeah, we should go over the tiebreaker rules for this season because they're like this for season 2 and 3, and then we never see this again.
Thank God.
I don't mind it. I actually kind of like these rules. But basically, if a tiebreaker shows up, it's whoever has the most previous votes who goes home. And this is going to loom large over this season. So you said Jeff Varner. I think Jeff Varner did play very well. But if we're looking at it in terms of where they started at the beginning of the episode to where they ended, Jeff is in the worst spot out of anybody on his tribe at the end of this episode because he has a vote. If there's a tie, he's done.
When looking at the cards that each person was dealt, I think Jeff did a really, really good job.
I'll agree.
But my personal opinion is that Colby was the best player of the episode. Like you said, he was thinking way far ahead and was prepared with the Texas flag. And then he didn't really do anything bad. He had just simple confessionals, seemed like he was really just knowledgeable on the game, and that's about it. And to me, being nice and subtle in the first episode like that, good to go.
Plus, he's the strongest guy in his tribe.
Yeah.
So I'm in complete agreement. It's got to be Colby. If this was any other season where this tiebreaker rule was in effect, I might give it to Jeff, and I probably would. But I think it's got to be Colby because of these tiebreaker rules. Jeff is in the worst spot in the game right now. He played very well considering he got sick, but I think it's got to be Colby.
Sure. And then for worst player of the episode, I have Keith written down because although Jerry was overbearing, Kimmy was overbearing, Deb got voted out, obviously ineligible, Keith was very confrontational. He was kind of like Deb, but on the tribe that didn't send somebody home.
Between Keith and Jerry, because I think those are the two who are both kind of confrontational, getting into stupid arguments, I'm going to give it to Jerry just because Keith was trying to keep the peace. Later on in the episode, he realized, yeah, this isn't great. Jerry and I aren't getting along. I should try and mend fences here. Jerry really didn't do that at all. So that's the only reason I think Jerry's the worst player of the episode, is Keith at least recognized the situation.
And the only counterpoint I have to that is that Jerry at least cemented herself with a bit of an alliance this episode. She would go on to establish about a group of 3 or 4, whereas Keith was, per the edit, felt like he was a bit on the outs. So that's my only thought.
I think there could also be an argument made for Kimmy, just because it seems like she annoyed a larger amount of people, whereas Keith and Jerry was more just a one-on-one fight that people are just kind of like, Why are you arguing? Whereas Kimmy was just, her overall personality was annoying multiple people. But I think it's a close race between all three of those.
Sure. Okay. Well, what we're going to do also is talk about winner picks, because I always find this really interesting, especially because Derek has not seen the show. So what we're going to do is all three of us are going to give our winner pick. And now, obviously, Josh and I know who wins this season. So we're going in this at the mentality of, after watching the first episode, not knowing anything, if we were watching this fresh for the first time, who would we pick? So we're trying to be as unbiased as possible. And I think we all succeeded at this, because we all have the same winner pick.
The name rhymes with Lef Tarner.
Yes.
Yes.
When we make these winner picks, it's not just based on like who's in the best standing after like episode 1. Like, there's no rule says like we can look into editology as much as we want and just kind of make assumptions based on redemption stories or who got really good confessionals, whoever made the best alliances, anything basically.
And Jeff Varner, I think, does the best job of talking about the game. I think throughout the pre-merge, I think it's pretty clear he's like the most knowledgeable about the game. He's kind of like a slightly meaner version of Richard Hatch in the pre-merge, like a slightly nastier. But I think that's Jeff Varner.
Yeah, you know what he did? He came in, Richard Hatch, guns blazing.
Mm-hmm.
Richard was a little bit sneaky about it while they were figuring out the game. But Jeff came in, Richard won the game like this. I'm going to be strategic. I'm going to own it. And this is who I am. I'm a cold-blooded killer, and that's what I'm going to do.
I don't love it, but it's got to be Jeff Varner, because we really don't get a lot in this first episode, and it was kind of tough to make a pick, but it's Jeff.
Yeah, we have a lot of purple edits. I also have a note about that. There are many characters we didn't get anything from. We barely got anything from Alicia. We barely got anything from Tina. We didn't get almost anything from Nick other than the compass gaff.
Yep.
I mean, and a purple edit, by the way, is when you're invisible. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know someone's name or you're really surprised about not knowing someone, that's a purple edit. So a lot of purple edits in this episode 1.
All right, well, moving on to episode 2, Suspicion. We're going to get a little more development for pretty much everybody here, but we start with Michael Scoopin. Always fun to start with Michael Scoopin. He is cooking food without consulting anybody else. Now, this entire pre-merge, Michael is just going to be like a bottomless pit of like hunger. He is always trying to get food, always eating, but he does this without consulting anybody else. You don't screw with other people's food. And immediately, Jeff and Alicia sees doing this and throw him under the bus to the rest of the camp. Like, oh, Michael's cooking our food without asking anybody.
Which, this is the right move.
Yep.
Always try and subtly throw someone under the bus in front of the group.
Don't make it obvious. Very subtle.
Plant the seeds. Inception.
Yeah. Say something like, oh, where's Michael? I think he's cooking food. Yeah, stuff like that.
But we do find out later in this episode that Mike's goal is to be the provider for the tribe. You know, bringing in the food so they can't vote him out makes him valuable, and he's very passionate about it. He goes out fishing right away, and I think he brings fish back.
I don't think he does it in this episode. I think he does it next time in episode 3. But yeah, Michael, I don't think he's doing it because he's trying to stop voting him out. I think he's just doing it because he's hungry.
I think a little bit of both, but I mean, you can already see that that's another poll already from the first season. One from the winner, Richard Hatch, being a provider.
But what Michael fails to realize is Richard did not win the game because he was a provider. That's not why he didn't get voted out. They tried to vote him out regardless.
It advanced him, though. It kept him around at least during the pre-merge.
Sure. Speaking of providers, over in the other tribe, we have Kel out fishing on his own while the rest of the tribe is chillaxing. Again, do what the rest of the tribe is doing. You want to go fishing, that's great. Only do it if the rest of the tribe is going fishing. If everybody else wants to chill and relax, you go join them.
At least get a group of at least half to go do something like this.
Do whatever the majority is doing.
Yep.
Guess what? All 7 of your tribe mates are chillaxing in the river. Go with them, Kel.
And this isn't going to be the last time that we have issues with Kel this episode.
No.
I mean, there's a moment, and Ryan, you can obviously opine more on this, but everyone's suspicious that he snuck beef jerky out into the Outback, and then he tries to claim that it's a blade of grass, and there's this really awkward confrontation between, guess who, Jerry and Kel ends up going away and saying, I can't believe you think this about me, but it's okay, I'm going to apologize to you, I'm going to do this. It was very fishy, but Ryan, you have something about this.
Yeah, I do. So, allegedly, at the time, people were really mad at Jerry because she kind of throws Kel under the bus for possibly eating beef jerky. They end up going through his bag. She and Tina, check his bag, which Marilyn really objects to, but I'll get to that. But in regards to Kel and the beef jerky, what I have heard the story goes is he was caught at the airport with, beef jerky sewn into his clothing. So he had a bunch of beef jerky on him, and they removed it. Maybe they didn't get all of it. And then the way he behaves once he's kind of, caught, he's like, guys, how about this? You can all use my razor. I have like spare razors. Here you go. Everybody can use my razor. That seems guilty to me. If you're not guilty, you don't become apologetic. You get kind of angry and upset, like, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't bring any beef jerky into the game. But the way he goes, no, here, have a razor. I didn't bring beef jerky. That's suspicious. I think Kel smuggled beef jerky into the game.
Okay, so Ryan, thought exercise. Let's say you are Kel. You have been accused of smuggling beef jerky into the Outback. Now, whether or not you did or didn't is irrelevant. What would you do? How do you handle that?
What the hell are you talking about? I didn't have any beef jerky. Act really confused and a little bit, like, upset, like someone accused you of that. But I think confusion is the best way to go. You're just like, what are you talking about?
I mean, because even if you, like, make up an answer, and I think I read that it was, like he said, it was like a blade of grass or something like that, even that, it starts to seem, oh, you're trying to make excuses, kind of along the same lines of being apologetic. Yeah, I would agree.
Because if you get angry, people will accuse you of being defensive for no reason, even though I think being angry is the natural route to go. So I think your best bet is just to be, like, really confused. Like, what? This is the first I'm hearing of this kind of thing. Like, where did beef jerky come from?
And all of this is curtailed if you hang out with the group and don't smuggle beef jerky in.
Yep.
So there you go. Problem solved.
You're going to be hungry no matter what, even if you have a little bit of beef jerky.
Now, Marilyn really, like, strongly objects to the bag searching. She's got morals. You know, she's an ex-cop. They don't have a warrant. So she actually calls everybody out, like, I don't think that was right. Marilyn, you can have as many objections as you want. Keep that crap to yourself.
Exactly. Objection, fine. Public objection, if the group is going with it, again, follow the rule.
Yep.
If the group does it, go with it.
You don't have to like it. Keep your mouth shut.
Now, you said it was mainly two people, right, who were kind of leading this?
Jerry was the vocal one. Tina is actually the one who opens the bag and searches it.
Because if it is really only two people, then I'd be okay with this objection, like this open objection, because now you're just kind of like outcasting two people compared to the rest of the tribe.
Well, I guess it seemed, especially like Amber and Mitchell, seemed like they were fine with it, but it was Jerry was the most vocal one. Tina went along with it, and it seemed like Marilyn was the only one who had a real problem with it.
See, to me, it's ammo. If you're Marilyn, Mad Dog, you stow that in your ammo belt for later.
Yep.
Just like Jeff threw Mike under the bus very inconspicuously, you can say later on, Tina's the kind of person who's going to go through your bag.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, again, like Ryan said, public objection, not okay. Save it.
Yeah, private. You want to throw somebody under the bus later. You're like, maybe later on, you're not in alliance with Tina, and you want to get rid of Tina. Hey, you know, she searched Kel's bag earlier in the game. That's so messed up. I know. We should vote her out.
Jerry's accusing people with no hard evidence.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They searched her bag without a warrant. I just want to quick mention that the reward challenge was jumping off a cliff. They would never do that anymore. Big cliff diving.
I like that.
That's basically all it was.
Yeah, they had to jump into a river, swim to a thing, and then as a tribe, they just swim down the river through the rapids. Like, this would never happen anymore.
It looked like a ton of fun, though.
Yeah, it did.
Just because, so you would say that it wouldn't happen just because it was too easy?
No. Too much risk. They wouldn't have contestants jumping
dangerous?
off cliffs anymore. No way.
Can you imagine someone like slipping, tripping, and falling and not actually jumping into the water? Oh, man.
Guess what? Survivor just got canceled.
Whoops.
This is where we get Jerry being a better cook than Keith. And yeah, okay, you made tortillas. That's great. And Keith, I think, does a pretty good job of just being like, oh, good job, Jerry. He doesn't love it, but he's trying. He's just like, oh, yeah, that's great. These are good. Good job, Jerry.
Well, yeah, and it's good on Jerry anyway, because there's no way she knew that she was going to end up with a chef.
Yep.
So, hey, this is what I can get in the Outback. This is what the contestants had before. I can make tortillas with this. Going out prepared. That's a good on Jerry, but being contentious about it is what's bad.
Yeah. If I discover there's a chef on my tribe, I'm not going anywhere near the food because I don't want to step on any toes. Maybe, let's just say, this is a great joke. Let's say I'm a better chef than the chef on the tribe. Say I can cook better. I'm not going to do it just because I don't want to step on their toes. So, I mean, great for Jerry that she did it. She succeeded. But, you're playing with fire here. And playing with fire is not great on this season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of food, let's get to the immunity challenge here. This is the second in 2 seasons food eating challenge where you just basically eat nasty food a la Fear Factor.
And we're going to get a lot of these in the early seasons.
And just for the record, this is my greatest fear of going on Survivor, is one of these disgusting food eating contests. Oh my gosh.
I could do it. I'm not too worried about it. I could do it.
if I had to, and it was basically like immunity on the line like this, I would force myself to. It'd be tougher if it was just something like a crappy reward. I'd be like, maybe just do it really slowly and not finish.
Right.
If it's something I can just swallow whole, I'll be fine.
Yes.
Chewing's where it gets tricky.
The ones that I'm most afraid of are things that are still alive. Later on in later seasons, there gets to be like actually like partially formed stuff, like a partially formed like bird.
Yeah.
Oh, the balut.
Balut. That kind of stuff I don't think I'd be able to do.
I have a fun story about balut. So when I was working in California, he had a coworker who was Vietnamese, and he brought in balut one day. Derek, do you know what balut is?
I mean, I'm picturing what this is.
It's like embryonic. It's like a bird.
That's in a new enough season that he's watched.
It's
Jeremy does it.
Yeah. So you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it was also on Fear Factor.
Oh, yeah. And it's a delicacy in Vietnam, I guess. So he had it for lunch, and he's like, hey, you want to try some balut? And I'm like, I know what that is. And he's like, how the hell do you know what that is? I'm like, I watched Survivor. I ain't touching that. And he just cracked up.
But so this would have been a good chance for you to test that out.
You know what? I'll do it for $1 million. How about that, apples?
Sure. But right away in this challenge, we're going to run into issues because Kimmy is a vegetarian.
Before we get into that,
we
we have backstory we need to talk about with this challenge. Because this is behind the scenes. So I'm not going to include this in best player, worst player, because we don't see it on the show. Because it wasn't caught on camera. Basically, from what I've heard happens, is Tina kind of asks over the other tribe, like, oh, hey, who'd Deb vote for? Because of the tiebreaker rules. And there's conflicting reports, but general consensus is Kimmy said Jeff got a vote. So Tina probed a little bit for information and got the information that Jeff has one vote against him. This is why they aren't allowed to talk between challenges anymore. Production, ever since season 2, has been much more strict about letting the tribes talk. Because they kind of left the two of them together while they were setting up. Guess what? Tina was probing for information.
I don't really see why that would be a bad thing. I mean, let them talk a little bit. Maybe not just like leave them alone, but if they're just standing next to each other and like someone says, like, ask one thing, if they choose to respond, they choose to respond. If they don't, they don't.
Get it on camera. I think that's the issue.
I'm with Derek, because they didn't get this on camera. And that's the issue here. Getting the tribes to interact, I love that stuff. So yeah, get it on camera. But that's what is the behind-the-scenes stuff for this challenge.
And bad move by Kimmy.
Very bad move by Kimmy.
And that won't be her first bad move in this stretch of time, because Kimmy is a vegetarian. Now, I'm okay with the vegetarian lifestyle. It's totally fine. It's a personal choice. If you go on Survivor and there's an eating challenge, you need to be either prepared to get voted out because you don't do it, or make an exception because you're on Survivor.
If you're going to give up a chance at $1 million just because you won't eat one piece of meat, what are you doing here? Why are you on the show? Go home. I don't want you here if you're going to do this. I cannot stand Kimmy. I can't stand her because of this. Like, this is $1 million. It's dead. You know, you can ignore all the meat you want when you go home. You probably are going to get voted out if you don't do this. Really? Really? I can't stand Kimmy.
Yeah, and she puts her tribe in a really bad position because everyone eats all of their food all the way up until the end. And Tina is going to end up throwing up some cow intestine here and basically give Kimmy a shot at redemption, which, yes, she does pull it out. She eats this really weird black worm thing and ends up winning.
Kimmy versus Tina, sudden death, eat the worm. I guess bugs don't count.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so why is she okay eating a bug? Because basically I read like just a quick synopsis of each episode, and basically what I saw is that she has an issue with any like
mammals,
land animals.
She said, "It's not a mammal. I can eat a worm." That actually was shouted. She was excited that she could eat it.
Kimmy wins, Tina loses, and Ogakor's going to tribal council. And it ends up being 7 votes for Kel because of the beef jerky thing, and 1 vote for Jerry because Kel doesn't really like Jerry.
Yeah, pretty crap break for him.
So now here's the question: what was the right move here? Because I don't think this was it.
The right move here, I think the right move is Kel. I do.
I think you were dead dog wrong. This might be the most wrong I've ever think you've been in your life. No, because besides Colby, I think Kel's the strongest person on the tribe. And Ogakor is going to lose the next 2 challenges.
2020 bias.
you don't get rid of the second strongest person on your team. Yeah, he's kind of a socially awkward loner, but you have Tina and Marilyn. Neither of them are very good at challenges. They're going to lose the next challenge because of Marilyn.
Think of this as it's their first person out.
Honestly, and if it wasn't for the Michael scoop and falling in the fire incident, this could have been the start of the chain of events that leads them into the merge 6-4, and they could have gotten picked off here. This is an extremely stupid move, I think. I think you have to get rid of someone like Tina. Tina seems like a great choice right now. I think Marilyn's probably worse challenges than her, but Tina screwed up in the challenge. Just vote her out.
Well, and there's actually a quote. I wrote it down. Tina says that she should be the one to go.
She should be.
She's obviously very confident that she's not going.
Yeah. She knows she's not going. It's the only reason to say that. And that if you know you're not going, I don't hate that move. Because just acknowledge that you failed. Move on.
I would say either vote out Marilyn or one of the two girls who was snooping through the bags.
Tina or Jerry. So Tina's one of them.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you're going to look at the point that we made before that Marilyn was overly objective of them searching the bags, well, that's maybe even just the littlest of reasons.
The only real alliance going on is, it's kind of everybody versus Kel, but it's not like a tight alliance. But just because Kel is so strong, I don't think you can get rid of him. I think you have to get rid of Tina here.
So I think you have to feel the group. As a tribe, I think you're right. It's got to be your Mad Dog. It's got to be your Tina. But I think if you drop yourself in, you're just one person. And like you said, it's everyone versus Kel. You take the easy vote to advance yourself 3 more days. But I see where you're saying if you're thinking about tribe makeup, it's got to be a weaker link.
If everybody else is going for Kel, you go for Kel. But the tribe as a whole screwed up. I think Tina should have gone home here.
Sure. So, Ryan, I forgot to take a note about who the best player of the episode is, but I'm sure you got us covered.
Yeah, it's Jeff Varner. He and Alicia both threw Michael under the bus at when he was making food for everybody else, and I think that's the best move of the episode. It's a great way to just put somebody else on the bottom, but he and Alicia did that. So what brings Jeff above Alicia for me is during the immunity challenge, while Tina is trying to choke down food, Jeff is making puking noises, and I think that might have helped contribute it, because if I feel like I'm going to puke, if somebody made a puking noise next to me, that's going to put me over the edge. So maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I think it might have helped a little bit, so I'm giving it to Jeff.
So do you think that could have a negative long-term impact on him? Like, does that leave a bad kind of taste in the opposing tribes?
As far as I can tell, I think that endeared him a little bit to everybody. Because I think they all kind of thought of him as like, that mischievous, sneaky bastard kind of thing.
That seems kind of mischievous and sneaky.
Yeah, and I think they liked him a little bit for it, especially when they got to know him. I respect the move. I like it a lot. So yeah, I think you're playing with fire a little bit, and maybe this is a little results-oriented, but I needed something to put, between Jeff and Alicia. So I think it's Jeff.
Okay.
So now worst player?
Tina. And I know she got that information out of Kimmy, but we didn't see that on the show. So putting that aside, it's just for her horrible immunity blunder. She should have gotten home here.
So what makes that worse than Kimmy's?
Kimmy got redemption. She won the game.
True, but it wouldn't have gone to a tiebreaker if it wasn't for Kimmy.
But she redeemed herself. If you're gonna pull that move, you better win the tiebreaker.
Who did Kel vote for?
Jerry.
By your very logic, I would say that Jerry had the worst of the episode.
The thing with Jerry is she got the tortillas. So I think that was the one reason I didn't, is because her cooking pushed her up in the group. So yeah, she did get a vote, but I think she pushed herself up by cooking tortillas. So it was kind of I wouldn't say moot point, but she did good stuff in this episode. I would argue if it wasn't for that vote, Jerry played the best in the episode. So that's the one thing holding her back from being the best player of the episode. So moving on, episode 3, Trust No One. So Michael wants to go out and hunt a boar or a pig or whatever, and so he's building a spear. And nobody wants him to do this. Like, you're going to lose the knife. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Michael's going to end up on the right side of this thing, unfortunately. But he shouldn't have done this. If everybody doesn't want him to do something, don't do it.
Yeah. If everyone is saying that, it's pretty obvious answer.
I'm going to be a contrarian here and say that because he comes out on the right side of this, go you. Go you. If you have self-confidence...
Yeah, that's results-oriented. That's results-oriented thinking. And I disagree.
Right, and I think that this is one of those times where the ends absolutely justifies the means. He kills that pig, they eat bacon, they eat pork, and all of a sudden they're thinking, wow, okay. I mean...
Okay, that's the high. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, loses the knife. Or goes out hunting boar and falls on the knife and gets medically evacuated from the game.
Okay, hold on, though. I genuinely don't believe that losing the knife is actually as likely as actually killing a pig. It's not. It's so
True.
hard to lose a knife. I think that they were blowing things out of proportion, and this is more of, again, Jeff throwing Mike under the bus because he's trying to sow those seeds early that Mike is a threat. And he's doing it inconspicuously, and he's doing it well, but I don't think that you're going to lose a knife.
But it's not just Jeff, though. It's everybody. Nobody wants him to do this.
And even if the chances of losing the knife are so low, which I would agree, they are very low. Basically, the only chance of you losing it would be it falling into like a river or something, or the chance that you get it stuck into like a pig or something and it running off, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the only scenarios that I can think of. However, even though it's that low of a chance, going back to what Ryan said, if everyone is saying don't do it, no matter how confident you are.
Yeah, it's bad. You know, he does end up succeeding, not in this episode, though. And it's bad social play. Don't rock the boat. I think this is a bad call on Michael. Now, it works out for him, but I think this is a bad decision. So this I kind of like. So Keith catches some fish, and he's cooking it, and everybody is watching him like a hawk to learn how he does it, because they want to vote him out next. And so they'll know how to cook it. They're like, yeah, it was really good, but any of us can do it now, so we don't really need him anymore. So Roger and Elizabeth bond, and this is like a really sweet relationship. I really like Roger and Elizabeth. But Elizabeth is telling people she will not vote out Roger, period. There's no way she'll ever vote out Roger. Guess what? Now I want to get rid of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
This is not something you tell people.
No, you can have those personal opinions, but just keep it to yourself. It's the same thing, even if it's not like a voting alliance. I mean, it's kind of, but if you have basically non-negotiables like this, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to go to the final three with you guys now because I'm getting voted out.
Yep.
Now, on the flip side, Tina and Marilyn are super close. They're really tight. And Tina's just going to throw Marilyn under the bus in this episode. Like, you know, despite being great friends and getting along amazingly. Marilyn calls Tina a constellation of a person. I don't really know what that means, but it seems nice. But Tina just going to toss her under the bus.
Writes her name in the stars. Constellation of a person.
That's how you do it. Yeah, great. Make these awesome personal connections. If you get them on the jury, they're going to vote for you. But toss them under the bus when you need to. Colby and Jerry are pretty close as well, but they're also like, yeah, I like her or I like him, but I'll vote him out. No problem. Yeah, that's the right attitude.
Yeah, they're two people who don't really care about their personal relationships, even if they do seem to be getting along.
Yeah, they like each other, and that's fine, but they're here to win. Respect.
It's the mindset you have to have on Survivor.
Yep. And then we also have Jeff and Alicia making a Final Four deal. They're planning ahead. This is the most strategic thing we've seen so far. And they're talking about who they can beat, who they can't beat. So I love this for Jeff and Alicia.
Yeah, and it's something that from what you've seen so far, you expect it from Jeff, but not really from Alicia.
Yeah, I think Alicia has some strategic chops. I think that people kind of forget about that.
And to be fair, they don't really show it too much.
Nope, but it's there.
She's definitely the fiery one on the tribe, though.
Yes.
I mean, you've got Kimmy, who's head and shoulders fiery above everyone.
Actually, I think Michael's the most fiery. Oh!
Boo.
LOL. So before we get to the challenge that actually matters, the immunity challenge, I just want to point out that there's a challenge here where they are loading hundreds of pounds of water onto Colby and onto Mike. And you never see anything like this in Modern Survivor. This is actually physically taxing, and people could get hurt, much like the cliff diving in the previous episode. And then they just have to sit there and hold it for as long as they can. And Mike's pole actually breaks, so they have to kind of improvise in order to come up with a winner. So I think that this actually bumps Mike and Colby's stock up a bit.
I'll agree.
Because you realize, hey, maybe, as to your point earlier, maybe we shouldn't have voted out Kel. We have no idea what these challenges are going to do for us or what they're going to look like. So Colby and Mike, wow, that was pretty incredible to watch. Anyway, so Ryan, on to the immunity challenge.
So Marilyn ends up falling multiple times during the challenge, and that's what costs Ogakor the win here.
And this is an obstacle course, by the way.
Very long obstacle course, fun challenge. I miss the challenges like this. So Tribal Council comes along. Everybody votes for Marilyn, except for Marilyn and Keith. Marilyn votes for Jerry, and Keith votes for Mitchell. So was Marilyn the right choice? Absolutely, yes. I think there's no question.
There's no question.
It's what should have been the last episode.
The only thing that's worth mentioning here is that, as you said earlier, Tina votes Marilyn.
Throws her under the bus.
No hesitation.
Now, Keith was sticking up for Marilyn, and he shouldn't have been. He needed to let her go quietly into the night.
Sleep.
Shh, just go.
It'll all be over soon.
But now we have to remember, Mitchell has a vote.
Yes, and then Jerry also makes a colossal mistake here. She reveals too much to tribal council. She says something along the lines of, yeah, I've gotten close to people, Jeff. I'm close to Mitchell and Amber and Colby. Okay, great. What about Tina and Keith?
Hashtag alliance.
Whoops.
At the very least, say Tina.
Yeah, who cares about Keith?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows that you don't get along
Fine,
with Keith.
if you don't want to be like a blatant liar, you don't have to say Keith, but say Tina.
I mean, even if you want to kind of keep Keith on the outside, you can say everyone else's name specifically.
Yep.
For that reason.
Modern Jeff calls that out immediately, by the way.
Oh, duh.
You didn't...
And that's the point.
I see you didn't mention Keith in there.
Nope.
Yeah, well, Jeff, Yeah.
No surprise that we haven't gotten along.
I have to give it to Tina. I think if you're willing to vote out your closest tribe member, also again get through with no votes despite being not a strong contributor to the team, you've cemented your place in the social game. You've cemented your strategic chops in the eyes and minds of the viewer. I think it's Tina.
I think it's Colby because of his performance in said reward challenge.
That was an incredible performance.
You can't get rid of him, especially with Kel being gone. You can't get rid of this guy. Also, for bonding with Jerry so much and still being willing to vote her out.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I see the argument for both, and it's kind of one side more just showing like your strength and everything, and one side more strategically.
Sure. Worst player of the episode, I think, is Keith for sticking up for Marilyn too much and just being on the wrong side of the boat.
And I went back and forth between Keith and Mitchell on this because Mitchell was called out for being kind of a slacker around camp and not doing much. Everyone kind of acknowledges it's because he's a big dude, and he is drained of energy.
He's like 7'1" or something like that. Like, he's dying. I mean, they acknowledge it, and I don't think anybody can really realistically hold it against him because of his body type.
It's hard because it's what's in your control versus what's out of your control. I would agree that Keith had more in his control and did more to hurt his own game.
Yeah, but either way, even if it's in your control or out of your control, people are going to target it. So
That's true.
And I don't think you mentioned when you were first introducing him, but Mitchell is, would you say, the tallest person ever?
Yeah, Mitchell's the tallest person to ever play Survivor. And there's a reason they don't really cast people like Mitchell's body type anymore. It's because, let's just watch them die. That's cool.
Well, they've had huge people even in more modern seasons.
But those are more basketball. They're muscled. They have more energy reserves than Mitchell, who's just a twig.
Yes.
All right, episode 4, The Killing Fields. So Tina and Keith know they're on the outside, and they're scheming and plotting. And Jerry, Amber, and Mitchell, who are the core alliance here, they do nothing to make Tina feel more comfortable. Jerry screwed up. They should be on damage control. Go get Tina comfortable. Especially for Amber and Mitchell, because Jerry, all right, bridge might be burned. Amber and Mitchell need to make Tina feel safe.
And I'm trying to remember, is this the episode that started with Keith and Tina trying to go out fishing in the canoe, and then Jerry comes out and basically steals the canoe?
Yep. Yes.
That's not damage control.
It's alienating people even more.
In this episode, Tina and Keith are going to do a great job working Colby.
Yes.
Finding that crack in the alliance and modern surviving it all the way.
Yeah, because Tina goes into a tent where Colby and Mitchell are sitting and starts trash-talking Jerry just to get a read on them. And Colby's more responsive to the trash talk, so they decide to work on him. She and Keith decide to work on Colby. I'm like, that's a great move. If you're on the bottom, might as well throw somebody under the bus and just see what kind of reaction you get. I like it. I love the move.
Well, and especially like a time this early, like there's still room to work with alliances. So like if there's a crack and you can pull someone, you're probably more likely than when you're closer to the end of the game and they feel trapped in an alliance.
Yeah. So in the reward challenge, Kucha wins chickens. And 3 times throughout this episode, Kimmy is going to make a big deal about this. Gotta let it go, Kimmy. You gotta let it go. You can't make a big deal about the chickens. If you're a vegetarian, fine. You don't eat it. You let everybody else eat it, and you don't say a damn word about it. But 3 times, Kimmy likes, whenever they start like slaughtering the chicken, Kimmy likes to go, okay, bye guys, have fun with the slaughtering. Make a big deal about leaving camp, make a little show. Nobody likes that. Stop it.
Well, and she already had 1 strike against her because of kind of her views on this, and that was in the last immunity challenge. And we had kind of a discussion on this in one of the episodes from season 1 that I think we went into really nicely, so I don't think we have to do it again.
Sure.
But you really have to kind of walk a fine line with your views on this. Make it known that that's the way you feel, but don't alienate yourself because of it.
Kimmy is like the worst example of this. She does, like, there's been other vegetarians on Survivor, and I think Kimmy might be, like, the worst egregious sinner in this case.
The only thing I have to add, I've only seen maybe a third of the seasons of Survivor, and this is the third time that I've seen someone flip their basket over chickens. There was Wendy, and then...
Oh, boy. You know, I take it back. Wendy's the most egregious example.
Less subtle, but Ty also would not allow the chickens to be slaughtered in his season.
He did it in a much
better way.
He did it in a much better way and actually got the tribe on his side.
They
with
rallied around him. That's not the typical
Amazing.
move.
That's the exception to the rule.
Yes, there's the rule, and then there's the exception. Ty was the exception.
And you've seen it one other time in Worlds Apart. Jen, on the No Collar tribe. She was vegetarian too.
Oh, that's right.
I forgot all about that. So anyway, point being, let him kill the chickens. People are hungry.
Don't mess with people's food.
Unless you want to offer up your own arm.
Michael wants to eat the chickens ASAP, so he'll be more necessary again. He's like, yeah, just eat them all. I think that's Michael just being hungry all the time.
And he does this in a confessional, not in front of a group, so it made for good TV. And actually, before we even get into that, at the reward challenge, I just want to acknowledge that everyone is now on board with killing a pig. They asked Colby about killing a pig, and that whole tribe is like, yes, we want Colby to kill the pig. We want Colby to kill the pig. And then everyone on the other tribe is like, yeah, Mike's trying to kill the pig. Everyone wants a pig, which just proves my point from the previous episode that...
Now it does, but at the time it doesn't prove your point.
Yeah, now if you're Mike, you should go.
If everybody's
go for
telling
it.
you to go hunt the pig, go hunt the pig. If everybody's telling you not to hunt the pig, don't hunt the pig.
It tells me that the edit was trying to paint Michael as an outsider.
It tells me that people change their minds because they're hungrier.
And that's fine.
3 days is a lot of time with only being on rice and a little bit of fish.
Then maybe I'd like to retroactively say, Mike, make the spear.
Don't make the spear.
Make the spear, hang it up on the wall, and just put a sign there saying, like, for when you guys change your minds.
Break glass when squealing is heard.
Break glass when you're finally hungry.
That's fine, but everyone wants to kill the pig now. Guess what?
Michael kills the pig.
Michael kills the pig.
Stupid crazy.
Michael's a crazy person, and if you know what we know about what Michael Scoopin does on the outside of the show, it's worse. It's worse. Everything about watching Michael nowadays is just bad.
Yes, and I'm assuming are we not going to go into it, or...
Do your research on Michael Scoopin. Google him.
Just Google Michael Scoopin. I don't really want to touch on it.
I don't want to touch on it.
Yeah, so if we are looking at him strictly as a Survivor player, because I feel like we still have to do that.
Yes, I agree.
This is something that I was amazed at.
Yes, absolutely.
And has never been done since.
Because they're not allowed to.
True, but even if they were allowed to, I feel like this is going to happen once, maybe twice in all of Survivor.
Yeah,
it is so unlikely for this to actually happen.
Yeah, he did it. He stabs and kills a pig, and they eat it.
Very Lord of the Flies. He even brought Nick in, who came in with a spear and kind of made sure that the perimeter was kept. This was good stuff.
And, people were like, dude, what did you do at first? And then they ate the pig, and they all loved it except Kimmy. But everybody else was like, yes, Michael, you're the best.
And Scoopin, he paints the pig's blood on his face as kind of like war paint. I'm thinking, okay, you killed the pig. You just, no, don't do that.
Oh, no, I love that. So, you own that pig. Yes, you did it. And I forgot that Kimmy was on that tribe.
Yeah.
So I would have gone back and been like, all right, we didn't kill a chicken.
We killed a pig, though. And Kimmy has a reaction to this. She's like, this is a sick tribe. This tribe's sick. You can say that in your confessional all day long. You do not say that in front of other people. No. She does.
And as kind of like an outsider for this season, if you would take maybe a handful of things that you remember the most from this season, this is one of those.
Yep, for sure.
Easily.
So Jerry's group, Amber and Mitchell, they kind of realize they could be in trouble because of the tiebreaker rules. So Jerry starts going to work on Colby. So everybody wants Colby. And so this is brilliant, what's going to happen here. And this is another example of something happening off camera, because they did not get this in the episode. Because they got this. They did this on the way to Tribal Council. While walking, Tina comes up with a scheme and pulls in Colby and says, hey, let's get rid of Mitchell. Because basically we have two factions. We have Jerry, Amber, and Mitchell. They want to get rid of Keith, obviously. Tina and Keith want to get rid of Jerry because they can't stand her. Colby doesn't want to get rid of Keith because Keith's strong. Colby doesn't want to get rid of Jerry because he and Jerry get along pretty well. Colby wants to get rid of Mitchell because he's the weakest person in the tribe, but that doesn't seem like an option. But Tina comes up with the plan because Mitchell has a previous vote and Keith does not. She tells Colby, hey, the three of us vote for Mitchell. We'll force a tie. Mitchell goes home on tiebreaker rules. And Colby's like, okay. And that's exactly what happens. we have a tie. 3 votes for Mitchell, 3 votes for Keith. Nobody flips. Mitchell goes home. Tiebreaker rules.
And the other thing to keep about this, I was surprised. Mitchell basically says, yeah, I keep Keith.
Basically.
I want to go home. I'm done. I'm not strong. I offer you nothing. I want this tribe to do well. Bye.
Yeah, Keith gives a speech saying, like, here's why you should keep me. And Mitchell's like, yeah, that's pretty good. Those are, I agree with Keith.
Those are all very good points. You should keep Keith. And they proceed to try and hold him hostage anyway. It doesn't matter, but really funny.
You know, Jerry and Amber should try and hold him hostage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it's great. This is an amazing move. This is, I think, the best strategic move we've seen up to this point in the show.
Mm-hmm. I guess combination of splitting the votes, keeping the votes the same, and finally knowing that Mitch would be the one going home with the tiebreaker rules. Correct decision.
The real question is, what is the move for Colby? Because I think everybody else plays this right in terms of the vote they make. What should Colby have done? Colby could honestly go either way. He has an alliance on both sides. Mitchell is the weakest person. They are losing badly. As far as we know, if they go into the merge down in the numbers, they're just going to get picked off. So I think Colby makes the right move. They have to win. You know, it's great to have an alliance, but if you go down in the numbers, at least at this stage in Survivor, you're done. So I think the right move is made here.
Yeah, maybe I weigh a little too heavily on just like pre-formed alliances, because I'm hoping that he at least had thought of this before and not just like on the way to tribal, because I wouldn't be too confident in flipping back and forth like that and just kind of making that decision that quickly. I hope that this was brought up to him before, and this was more like a last-ditch effort by Tina that finally convinced him.
Yeah.
Then I would say that was the right move. But if it was kind of just like out of the blue and Colby was just like, yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I'm going to do that. Then I think that's not really a great move.
Well, they were really originally trying to get him to vote for Tina, or a vote for Jerry, and he wasn't going to do that. So changing the target to what he wanted, I think it works. I think it's good. I like this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, good move.
And I think that gets, if we can segue into it, best player of the episode, I think, would be Tina. Because of that.
Easy. She realizes she's on the outs. She recruits Colby, and she uses the previous vote scheme to knock out Mitchell. What more could you ask for in a best player of the episode?
She escaped with no votes.
I love Tina in this one. This is so good for her.
Closely followed behind by Michael. Just because of the pig.
Also the good episode. But speaking of the pig, worst player of the episode is Kimmy.
Yeah.
Hands down.
First you're complaining about the chickens, and now you're complaining about the pig. If your highlight of the episode is literally you complaining about multiple things.
On 2 separate occasions.
Yeah.
You're not playing a great game.
Right. So one more, I know we'll do weather report at the end here, but there's a wildfire, by the way, in this episode.
Casual.
When I'm talking about my Survivor weather reports, I didn't think that wildfires were going to come into this. They were talking about how it's smoky and the camera work isn't great. I'm like, what? Their whole world is on fire.
This reminds me of when I lived in California and everybody was so casual about, like, everything burning up. It's like, yo, everything is on fire. Ash is raining from the sky. Why is everybody so calm? Episode 5, the gloves come off. Jerry is working on Colby, trying to swing him back over. Great for Jerry, but Colby's playing, like, I don't care about alliances. I care about winning immunity challenges. And that's the right attitude to have at this point for Colby, especially because he's kind of the swing. But I think he could have done a slightly better job of reassuring. Like, no, we're good. We're good. Don't worry, Jerry. Like, we had to get rid of Mitchell. We're going to lose everything. I think he mostly does an okay job, but I think he could have done a little bit better.
I think this is the episode where Colby loses his cool a little bit. He's starting to get really impatient with the antics.
Yes.
With the losing and being the only real physical contributor to the team.
Keith, too.
Keith too, but Colby knows. And I think that this sours him, like you said, on the whole Jerry, Amber grouping. We start to see those negative seeds being sown here.
Yeah, because during the reward challenge, they have to build a stretcher. And Jerry kind of takes charge. And Colby is just so sick of Jerry and her crap that he has to storm off because he's so tired of her.
And Colby is a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of his biggest weaknesses is just like his impatience, I guess, or ability to be annoyed. I don't know what you would really call it.
And this is what I'm scared about for when I go on Survivor, because I feel like this is my biggest weakness.
Because we've seen him flip once already, even when he's close to some other tribe mates. So if you kind of are going to start to be known as someone who flips back and forth just because you're annoyed by people, that's not good.
It's not good. No, it's not great for Colby. I can relate strongly to this. But yeah, it's not great.
You got to put that stuff aside when you're on Survivor.
You got to. Over on the other tribe, we have an amazing blow up between Kimmy and Alicia. I will always wag my finger in your face.
And again, this comes about because Kimmy is still obsessed with the chickens.
To be fair to Kimmy here, I think Kimmy's on the right side of this thing. Because Kimmy has a fair point. Her suggestion is, hey, why don't you guys eat every other day with the chickens? I think that might be a little smarter. Instead of doing it every day, you spread out the protein, make it last a little bit longer. I think Kimmy is making a fair point, and I think she's probably right. But the problem is she's complained about the chickens so much that the second she mentions anything about changing the chickens, Alicia's just going to blow up because she's had it.
Yeah. So I think the right way to approach just the chicken scenario is to kind of try to assume where the merge is going to be. Take that many days and divide it by 3.
Yes.
Or divide it by 2, depending on how many chickens you have left. And that's when you eat the chickens, so that you don't bring them into the merge to help everyone else. Do it that way. Settle. You're good.
I think you're right. And I think Kimmy is probably right on the chickens.
The only thing that I'll add to this, because we like to drop ourselves in where we're at. So we can't rewind 3 days ago when Kimmy hadn't complained nonstop about the pig and about the chickens. Drop yourself into Kimmy's body today. You do not say one word about the chickens. If they want to eat the chickens 3 days in a row, be quiet. Let them do that. Let them do it.
In a vacuum, Kimmy is right, but with everything else we've seen, she just don't say anything.
Yep.
Just another instance where she should just
I feel a little bit bad for her, even though I can't stand her and I love Alicia. I will always wag my finger in your face. Oh, that's great stuff. Ogre Corps finally wins the new immunity challenge after solving the maze. Kucha is going back to tribal council. Roger and Elizabeth, they don't like Alicia always complaining about Kimmy. It's one thing to throw people under the bus, but to be constantly complaining about something, you lose all subtlety. People see through what you're doing and people get annoyed. Jeff Varner is much better than Alicia at throwing people under the bus. Alicia gets too negative, I think. And Roger and Elizabeth don't like this. But anyway, it's 6 votes for Kimmy, and Kimmy throws a vote on Jeff because someone told her to vote for Jeff. We don't really know why or who said that.
Which is kind of interesting because you know that Jeff already has 2 votes, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
So
he had 1 vote, now he has 2 against him.
So I feel like if you kind of want to just toss a vote on someone, pick someone who has 0 votes.
Yeah.
If you're just being petty at this point, just toss it on someone else, unless you really hate Jeff that much.
And there's nothing to suggest she hates Jeff. There's nothing.
She should just toss a vote on, Alicia.
Yeah. But she throws it on Jeff.
Because take that.
Suck it.
And one other thing that I noticed in this episode, an unwritten rule of Survivor that I hadn't thought of, it's brought up that Kimmy does not bathe very often as well. Now, I think that it's everything else that got her sent home.
This doesn't help.
But assuming that you're in neutral standing on your tribe, there's literally a thing in psychology called hygiene factors, where if you don't have it, it's a bad thing, and if you have it, it's a neutral thing. Well, guess what? If you have poor hygiene, it's a bad thing. Bathe.
So my question is, why not vote out Roger here? He's the weakest one on the tribe. Easy. Interesting. He's not even mentioned.
I think it's because they have the numbers. I think vote out the member that's not cohesive. You're still up 1. You still have the stronger tribe. I think you kind of pick the outsider and you have the leeway to do that. I don't necessarily think it's the perfect move in a perfect world, but I think it's okay.
She's the least in the group.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a combination of having an outsider, also having a little bit of a buffer, trying to look ahead towards the merge, who is going to maybe stick with a all Kucha alliance.
Yeah, I think Kimmy's the least likely to stick with the Kucha group.
Yeah, I think she'd be the first to jump.
Yeah. I think that's a good enough reason as any. And then if you lose again, you could toss out Roger.
It is interesting that Roger is not even mentioned. That's the thing I find fascinating, and that's why I'm going to award him Best Player of the Episode. There's honestly not much good gameplay in this episode, but Roger is on the right side of the vote and somehow isn't a target despite being clearly the weakest person on the tribe. That just speaks to him having an amazing social game. So,
yeah, and we don't really know if there's anything more specific going on. We know that he's really close with Elizabeth, and that's about it.
Yep. So I think Roger's Best Player of the Episode.
So for worst player, do you say maybe Alicia for blowing up at Kimmy?
Jerry. She is really annoying Keith and Colby, and you especially don't want to be annoying Colby right now because she needs him.
Yeah.
She needs to read the room and know she's pissing Colby off. I get you want to be in charge and you want to step up. Sorry, sometimes you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad for your game to step up because you're annoying Colby.
Yeah.
All right, one more episode. And nothing eventful happens in this one. Episode 6, Trial by Fire.
Nope, nothing. All
No
right,
foreshadowing.
moving on.
So first off, we have Amber and Jerry talking about food. And it seems a little bit sexual.
It's not even seems. They literally say, we're equating chocolate to sex, and then they're saying, Hershey's Kisses, ow!
It's uncomfortable.
And chocolate will never be brought up sexually again in Survivor.
Never.
But Colby does have a great quote in the middle of all this.
I may be a lot of things, but I ain't no Hershey bar. And he's so annoyed with Amber and Jerry. He's like, God, bring on Cooch and vote out these goons.
I'm ready to start playing Survivor. Jerry's just playing the bongo in the background. You hear them shouting from in the tent. He's like, yeah, I'm done. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, Colby's so done. And I love Colby.
He's very real, so that's good.
Yep. It's a very genuine reaction. And I feel like I'd be the exact same way. A lot of people don't like it when you talk about food on Survivor. That's a very common thing. It's like people don't want to be reminded that Taco Bell exists. Don't remind me. I gotta eat my rice. Don't bring it up.
And we even brought it up in season 1, and I'm sure it'll come up again very soon. Talking about food after a reward challenge, right along those lines.
Yep, it's very similar. Don't remind people about what they don't have.
It's not going to change the fact that you don't have it. It's not going to magically appear just by talking about it. It's not going to make you feel a little more full just by talking about it.
The downsides are so much greater than the upsides for doing that.
Maybe if you can bond with one person and when you're talking about it alone.
Mm-hmm. If it's just the two of you, sure.
Be like, oh yeah, like this and this. But nope, not all together.
And then Jerry's going to go make some fried green tomatoes. She finds some green cherry tomatoes and wants to make fried green tomatoes. And Keith's like, yeah, you can't do that with this kind of tomato. And apparently the tomatoes suck. But it's just more conflict between Keith and Jerry, and everybody's just really sick of it. Even though Keith's on the right this time, Tina's like, everybody just shut up. I could put you both in timeout.
So I don't remember this. Did you just find them out in the wild?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be careful with that.
If I remember right, they'd actually pegged that bush as one that is fruit bearing, and Keith was saying you could have let those mature, you could have let those ripen a little bit, and then we'd have had edible tomatoes.
Like in a day or two, those would have been amazing. Good job, you ruined them.
Yes.
And again, trust the chef, don't step on toes, but
Keith let it go.
Well, and he did fairly quickly, but not before another altercation with Jerry.
I think you can say it once. Be like, spit the facts, basically, and say, let that go another 2 days, and we would have had these really good tomatoes, and go back to what they were talking about food, and try to target that, deflect it onto Jerry, be like, we could have had these really juicy tomatoes. Oh, those would have been so good. It's a bummer that you picked them 2 days early.
It's the ammo belt. I'm going to start coining this. Ammo belt. It's the Survivor ammo belt.
Yeah, you collect ammo. It's like a video game. You gotta collect ammo.
Stock up for the boss battle.
Yeah.
I like it.
At the reward challenge, it's a blindfold challenge where one person's the caller and they gotta lead everybody else. And it's Jerry versus Nick. And Nick wins. It's close. It's real close, but Nick ends up winning. And Colby's so pissed off, he throws a bucket of water at Jerry.
I remember this.
It's hilarious. Colby, don't do that. It's not great. Like, you can be frustrated all you want, but don't throw buckets of water at people.
Cool. It was great TV.
But good on Nick for winning that one. It was close.
And I've also heard with these particular challenges, it's not often as black and white as they kind of show it, because they'll show the callers and we can understand the callers as viewers, but I hear that oftentimes people are screaming and making noises and making it really hard for the tribes to actually hear one another, and they just do tricky mic work to make sure that you don't hear
absolutely.
it. But every once in a while you can hear someone in the background just like, and it's just really funny.
Yeah, no, those are tough challenges.
And this is the first time that there's been a blindfold one.
Yep.
First of many.
But Jerry, at the very end, she panics and Nick doesn't.
Oh, and poor Amber, she had the basket in her hands.
That was a pretty rough moment.
Almost got that hashtag product placement Mountain Dew.
She takes her blindfold off and sees she was right there. If she had just set the basket down, she was there. Yeah. And that's like heartbreaking a little bit.
Yep.
If only we cared a little bit more about Amber.
Hey, I like Amber, except for everything that she does with Jerry, which is pretty much everything. So never mind. Maybe I don't.
One little side note here. Michael Scoopin's go ahead and going to fall in the fire.
What?
Little side note.
When did that happen?
Michael Scoopin's going to fall in the fire? Yeah, you don't remember this?
No.
It's not a huge plot point. They don't really spend a ton of time on it. But apparently he's trying to use his breath to rekindle the fire. And he passes out and goes hands first into really hot coals and ends up diving in the river. And you see his flesh peeling off like a Band-Aid. And not that this matters, but my fiance, now wife, she got 3rd-degree burns on her hand when she dropped hot oil on it. I know the kind of pain that someone goes through when they get 3rd-degree burns on their hands. And hers didn't peel until like the next day. Michael's hands, again, it's like he was wearing rubber gloves.
Yeah. To be fair, I think that's because he dove into the river, and that wouldn't have happened if he did, because that cooled it down immediately.
It doesn't matter as much as you think. You're not supposed to do that, but it's not going to make that much of a difference because when they show his hands, I mean, it's peeled halfway up his hand. His hands were burned worse than my wife's, and oh my gosh, the pain. And I mean, it's the worst injury I've seen on Survivor, and it was graphic.
Yeah, dude, this is intense. Even knowing what we know about Michael Skupin and me feeling not bad for him at all anymore, this is still so intense. Like, you kind of forget that he's a scummy piece of crap human being. It's just like, oh my god, this is insane.
Like, human to human, nope.
As an outsider for this episode, I don't think that there's a doubt that this is probably the one most memorable moment of the season.
You're not forgetting this. You're never forgetting this.
No.
There's people who have never watched Survivor and they know this moment.
Mm-hmm.
This might be the most iconic Survivor moment. This is an argument for number one. Everybody knew about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is brutal. And so Michael Skupin gets medically evacuated from the game. And this changes everything.
Because now these tribes are 5v5 going into the merge.
First medevac.
Yeah, first medevac. Now, let's talk about what would have happened real quick if either tribe had lost. Because personally, if Cooch had lost, I think Michael's going either way. I think Michael's the vote here.
And they're not gonna have an immunity challenge, which is different than sometimes other seasons. Sometimes even if there's like a medevac or someone just quits or something like that, there's times where they do go on to the immunity challenge. Sure. But that's not what they do here.
No. So we don't know what the challenge is. We don't know who to won. But I think if Kucha had lost, I think Michael would have been the vote anyway.
Really?
I don't think we know enough.
I think he's the biggest outsider, and at this point, challenge strength doesn't matter so much. Unless you're considering, who's going to win the individual challenges. Michael's going to win those. I don't want him around because he's going to win those. I want to win them. Also, he fits in the worst of the 6. So I think Michael is the clear choice to go home here.
I think he's the right move to send home if you're the rest of the group. That being said, I don't know what would have happened.
I think it might still be a little too early in just Survivor history to assume that people are looking ahead that much. They might also be kind of looking at who's the biggest. I mean, you kind of said that he's the biggest outsider, but given who else is on the tribe, there might be another kind of option there. It probably still should be Michael, but I don't think it's a clear cut. For sure.
The only one even in discussion would be Nick. There's no reason to suggest that he was in poor standing with the group where there was kind of some foreshadowing with Michael. And that's where I can't disagree with Ryan, but I see where you're coming from.
Especially because Nick won the reward challenge for them that episode, and that boosts his standing.
That's true.
If Okafor loses, I think Jerry's done.
The only thing that would possibly save her is Colby. So it's either Jerry or Amber.
And I know Colby and Amber were pretty tight, actually. Knowing that, Jerry's done here, I think, because Colby is so sick of Jerry.
Yeah. Vote him out. Done with these goons.
So did they all know that the merge was basically coming the next?
They all knew. They knew the exact time.
Oh, yep. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yep. So best player of the episode, there's hardly anything to work with here because there's no strategy. It's just Michael falling in the fire and, Okafor just being terrible. So I'm giving it to Nick just because he led his team into victory in the reward challenge. It's the only good thing that happens in the episode.
Basically, one of the only good things that happened to him.
Oh, that's true. Worst player of the episode is Jerry. For annoying Colby, Keith, and Tina so much and screwing up the tomatoes and screwing up at the reward challenge.
It's Jerry.
Best player of the pre-merge is interesting to me because I think there's two options. One of them is if you only go based off what we see of the show, which is ultimately what I'm going to do. The other one is if you take into account behind-the-scenes stuff. Tina is if you take into those two big moments, finding out about the Jeff vote, getting Colby to switch to the Mitchell plan. Tina is the best player if you take into account that stuff. But if you ignore that and only go with what we see on screen, it's Colby.
I would agree with the Tina thing if we can take everything into account. I feel like there's enough there against Colby to keep him. He's definitely one of the top 2 or 3. But I think there's enough there just with him flipping a little bit and seeing how easily annoyed he gets with people. It seems like even though he's knowledgeable on the game, he's maybe not the greatest with strategy. I don't know if you can put him as the number one. Now, I think the only other like good options would be like a Tina or a Jeff, and there might just not be enough there to definitely say that one of those two people should be the top nominees.
It's hard to say for anybody with Kucha because they've only been to tribal council twice and they're both unanimous votes. Deb and Kimmy, that was tough. It's hard to give it to anybody on Kucha because there's been so much at Ogakor.
My thing is obviously having seen only Modern Survivor, and my crutch is I have no idea how this season turns out. To me, the best player in the pre-merge is hands down Tina. To me, it's no question. I touched on it before when Colby starts to show his emotions. He is good standing in the tribe. When you have good standing in the tribe, you can't lose it. You can't lose your cool. Do you want to know who's playing Puppet Master that whole time? That's Tina. That's Tina who's willing to make the bloodthirsty moves. That's Tina who found the crack in the alliance. That's Tina who still hasn't received a vote. That's Tina who, I mean, I guess, now I know that she's fishing for information, but we'll cut that out because, we don't know that that's going on. We do know that she orchestrated the Mitchell vote because they talk about that plan that happened on the way to Tribal, and she was the only one to talk about that. To me, Tina is the only option.
The one thing holding me back is she should have been voted out in the second episode. She should have been. She was the worst player of that episode.
But wouldn't that be
that's a plus.
A good enough reason to say that she's a stronger player?
Because that would mean that you're completely discarding social game. Obviously, her social game was good enough to not even be a target.
The question is more, I think, not whether... Tina obviously had a good social game there, but was it more Tina's doing, or was it just that Jerry burned Kel so bad that there's nothing he could do? Was it Tina's doing, or was that just she accidentally got saved by the Jerry Kel beef jerky thing?
A little bit of both, and just taking advantage of the situation, probably.
I don't have an answer for you, really. I don't know for sure, but that's the one thing holding me back. I think, in my heart of hearts, I think Tina's the best player, but just going with what we see, I think I would have to give it to Colby. If I'm watching this fresh as it airs, it's Colby. But knowing everything I know, it's Tina.
I have no idea what that fresh as it airs perspective comes from. I just think about Modern Survivor, so.
So only because I do remember this season a little bit more than other seasons, ignoring completely what my pre-episode naming game shows. I do remember myself thinking back to watching it and thinking that Colby did do the best. And that's just me not knowing any of the behind-the-scenes stuff and just strictly watching the show straightforward. I'd say, I think I would have to say it was Colby at that time.
Now, worst player of the pre-merge, going into the merge, of everybody left in the game, it's Jerry. And I don't think it's close.
I agree. I think Tina and Keith will be able to assimilate better with the other tribe.
Yeah.
And I think Jerry's big personality is going to be her downfall. I don't know this. I know nothing. So, again, what I knew from I guess I didn't even know that it was pre-merge, but here's what I knew going in. I was pretty sure that somebody killed a pig. And I knew at some point this season Michael Scoopin was going to fall into the fire.
Yeah.
Oh, and I knew that Colby brought a giant Texas flag in to be a tent. I knew nothing else.
So my question for you, Derek, is going into the merge, it's 5-5. Which tribe do you think is going to win out? Is it going to be Kucha or Ogakor?
It's hard because Modern Survivor tribes are not a thing at the merge anymore, so I have no idea.
So I guess that's your third option. I think there can be three options. I think, does one win over the other, one way or the other, or do you think that it's going to be a flip-flop battle?
Well, going into the first episode, it's one or the other, I think. It's going to be a war going into this merge.
Sometimes that's not always the case, though.
It just doesn't feel that way for me because I think the first couple episodes or the first couple of seasons of Survivor that I watched, they were not tribal battles at the merge. It didn't feel like it anyway.
But going into this, we just came off of Borneo, which was Toggy versus Bagong, and this is what Kucha and Ogakor have seen. So I think it's safe to assume we're going into a 5v5 fight.
I do feel that Kucha is more united as a tribe. I do think that in a head-to-head fight that would give them the advantage. They've also shown the knack to win challenges, but they're also without Michael going in. So it's hard to say. If I had to pick one, it's Kucha, but for the record, I don't think that these tribal lines are going to hold.
Okay. Jared, why don't we get a weather report from you?
Yeah, so on day 1 and day 7 and day 15, we had some rain. Day 15, particularly heavy rain. Everyone was miserable the day after. Wildfire was kind of a constant. through this pre-merge as well. They highlight it in day 10, and then day 12 and onward, it was just kind of a factor where they thought about food or where the wind was pushing, and they were kind of worried about it getting to their camps. So for the most part, hot, sunny, but a couple really wet days, and then wildfires everywhere.
So basically a little bit more dry than Borneo so far?
Drier than Borneo, but fire is spookier.
Yes, wildfire over lightning.
Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the pre-merge of Survivor, the Australian Outback. The next episode will be all about the postmortem.
Postmortem.
We'll do a postmortem of the season. Yeah, the next episode will be all about the post-merge and what happens next. All fun stuff. Our winner pick's still in the game. Jeff Varner's still going strong.
Yeah, and I feel good about it.
I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great
As
about
strictly a Survivor player in this one season, I feel good about it.
You know, I do want to say that real quick about Jeff Varner. It sucks because he's a lot of fun this season. And just knowing what he's going to end up doing in Survivor really sucks because I love him in this season. And yeah, it just kind of bums me out going back to rewatch it because of what he did.
And we don't really need to touch on it, but kind of just do the same thing like we said with Michael Skupin on... Just look it up. Just Google it.
Google it. It's just, this one's actually a Survivor spoiler because it happened in Survivor. But yeah, it's just kind of a bummer because he, at least through the pre-merge, I'll only say that much. He's my favorite player of the 16.
Now we have our winner pick, and that winner is still in. Are we ever going to allow ourselves to switch our choice?
No switching.
Or having like a secondary, like, I know this was my original winner pick, but I would like to like say this is who I think will win at the merge.
We'll do this. Because we know the answer, we're not going to do it. But for Derek, do you have, Jeff is still your winner pick, but who would you pick now if you had the opportunity of the 10?
I like Kucha's chances as a tribe, but that being said, I think that Tina has shown enough strategic chops to go the distance.
Okay.
At merge, I'm gonna say Tina.
Okay.
And I do think that, along with more of what I said with the strongest person was, I do think I would have picked Colby.
Going into the merge, yeah, I probably would have gone with Colby.
And that's just me thinking about like my mentality when I was watching it for the first time.
Yeah, I think I would have gone with Colby. In the meantime, I got nothing else for you. So head back to camp.
Head back to your lives.
See you next time.
Bye.